Hi everyone, it's Ileana and I have a card to share with you today. I am using some new stamps, at least they're new to me, from Joy Claire. This is a Bible journaling stamp, but I wanted to make a card with it. First, I'm prepping my Bristol cardstock because I'm going to be using my Zig clean color markers. They're like watercolor markers and it works best if you use the Bristol paper. I'm starting by inking up my stamps onto and stamping them onto the cardstock using VersaFine Onyx Black ink. When I do watercoloring, I like to do clear embossing because it kind of creates a little well for your watercolors to stay in, and it keeps me from going outside the lines. I stamped the sentiment on here, but then I end up going a different direction later on. So I'm adding my clear embossing powder, and then I'm just going to heat set it. If you want to skip this part, you can just heat set the ink. The VersaFine Onyx Black ink is waterproof, and so you should be able to do that. Now I'm just taking my colors and I'm just going to color in some of the images. For the rim on this, I'm just going to leave it full strength. I'm not going to use my aqua painter to spread the color around. I wanted a deeper color in this area, and for the rest of the cup I use the same color, but I end up spreading the color around with my aqua painter. Now I've sped this up 8 times, so you can tell that I'm going super slow. So I just added a little bit of color to the very bottom, and then I'm just going to use the aqua painter to draw the color away from there and just kind of spread it around. I'm not really too concerned about shading. I'm fairly new to watercoloring, and so I'm just kind of learning as I go. Now for this part of the cup, I chose a green, and I really didn't have green in mind. What I did know from practicing was that if you water down this green quite a bit, it makes it more of a greenish aqua, and so that's what I did. So I just used a scrap piece of my Bristol cardstock and scribbled it on there, and then I just picked up the color with my aqua painter to spread it around. And for the rest of the cup, I wanted it to be white, but I didn't want it to be stark white, so I just used the lightest gray that's in the set, and I'm just going on the edges and just blending that color in. I started from the top and worked my way down. That way my hand wouldn't be resting on anything that was wet. Ask me how I know, because that's how I practiced my first piece. So what I did take from my practice piece was to start from the top and work my way down. And the aqua painter that I have has a really fine tip, so it's easy to get into those little crevices. I tried using my bigger one and it just created a big mess. So now I'm taking my white Jelly Roll pen and I'm coloring in where I kind of went over the line. And now for the coffee part, I'm using 2 shades of brown. I didn't find a shade of brown in the set that I liked, and so I just played around until I found a good combination, and so I ended up using the dark and the medium brown and just scribbling it on there and then spreading it around. I like my coffee really blonde. I like a lot of creamer, and so I wasn't able to get that color, but this was good enough. So I didn't like the way that this all looked on the cardstock, and so I'm just taking a X-Acto knife and I am cutting everything out. And just to smooth out the edges, I pulled out my basic gray nail file. Well, it's not a nail file, it's just a file set, just so that I was able to smooth out those interior pieces. And then I'm just going to fussy cut the rest of it out with a pair of scissors. But first, I decided that I wanted to go ahead and color the edges of my cut piece so that it'll hide any bad cuts. So I wanted to do that first because if you touch it, it could potentially smear. And so I wanted to do it first before I cut it out. Now I'm just going to trim everything out with my scissors. And it's a fairly easy to cut this out. There's not a lot of little crannies in there to go around. And now that it's all done, I'm just going to go around the edges with that same black marker. It just gives it a finished look, and then it'll hide if you cut not as precisely. So I did find this neutral piece of pattern paper from Avery Elle from their Neutrals collection. This kind of reminded me of coffee, and so that's why I picked it. And I'm just going to trim it down. The stamped image is less than 6 inches, so this piece will work out. It's just going to be a little bit bigger than a normal card. The card ends up being 6 inches by 4.5 or so. Now I want to stamp my sentiment on here, and I'm just going to position everything. I use my magnets to hold my cups down. I want to make sure. And then I realize that there's a smudge there. So I take my sand eraser and I try to work at it. And when I start to get the smudge off, I start to remove the color. And so now it's fairly obvious that there is a sanded place. And I'm kind of bummed about it. But then when I go to stamp, right before I press it down, I'm thinking, oh wait, I could flip my paper around. I can flip it around and it will be hidden by my cups. So I kind of figured that out. Good thing I hadn't stamped on it yet. And I do this 2 times. I want it to be super dark. And then I'm going to add my clear embossing powder and heat set that with some with my heat gun. Now I'm just adding some multi-matte medium to the back of my my stamped image that I've cut out. And I want to make sure that I go around the all the little pieces so that they don't get caught in the envelope when you take it in and out. So I'm just using my tweezers to help position this. And because there are a lot of edges to this stamped image, I'm using clear block to hold everything down just until the glue sets. I didn't want to use foam or anything like that because it would just be too much trouble to go around those little teacups. So I've taken a piece of 12 by 12 scrapbooking paper and I've cut it down to create my card base, and it ended up being 12 inches by a little bit more than 4.5, and then I scored it to create my panel. And of course I can never measure correctly, and I ended up having to trim some of that off. I've added some black fun foam to my pattern paper. It was a little bit warped because of the embossing that I did on it, and so now I'm going to trim it. And see, once again, you see that I can't measure, so I'm just going to trim everything down with my scissors. I end up going over to my paper trimmer and trimming it off. And now I have finally figured out where to put my Pretty Pink Posh confetti. It takes me a long time to figure out where I want to put confetti or sequins on a project. I'm just not a natural at it, and so I get very self-conscious and paranoid about my placement. And finally I just got my placement where I was comfortable, and now I'm just adhering it with my Crystal Katana and some multi-matte medium. And what I did was just created a diagonal line, and I made sure that I had an odd number of pieces of confetti. And then I wanted to add one more special touch, so I took my clear Spectrum Noir pen and I went ahead and just added that to the coffee. You have to be careful when you do this because the pen will reactivate the zig marker and you can create a mess if you're not careful. And that is my card. Thanks so much for watching. If you like this video, be sure to give it a thumbs up and don't forget to hit that subscribe button. I hope you have a great day. Bye.